Hi, hi, hi. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, wherever you are. I hope you're doing well. This is Blessing. Welcome to the Becoming a Christian Millionaire podcast. This is the podcast where I share my personal development journey with you. I share with you the books that I'm reading and the courses and that I'm attending on my journey of becoming a Christian millionaire. So if you are on this journey, I hope you will join with me as we go through the summary of the books that I'm reading. So if you've been following me, you will know that I've been reviewing the book Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. I will show you the cover, Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. I'm really excited to announce to you, look how thick this book is. Last night, I was able to finish reading everything. And I'm really excited about that because the things that I've learned has been mind blowing. I mean, I'm telling you, in the book, I will basically give, because this is the last time I'm going to review the book because I finished it. I thought I'll use this opportunity and share with you how we at the Christian Millionaire Book Club, we normally like to review books. So we like to start with the strengths of the book. Then we go into the weaknesses. Then we talk about the summary of the book. And then we look at what are the key lessons and nuggets that our members can take away from this book. So, in terms of the strengths of the book, I really love the book, and I said this at the beginning because, firstly, even though it's a thick book, it's thick not just with text, but it's got diagrams. These diagrams really help to cement the learning from the book. So Russell will explain a concept, he will explain a framework, and then there'll be drawings that depict depict whatever it is that he's teaching. And I think being quite a visual learner, I do love text, but I like visuals as well. So I find that really helpful. Another strength of this book is that it's an excellent marketing book. I mean, if you've not read a marketing book, or if you want to increase your knowledge of marketing, then I would say literally this book is one of the best, if not the best, marketing book. Um, and then Russell shares stories after stories after stories, not just of his success, mind you, but of his failures as well. For example, I never knew that um, one of the live presentations Russell did at the beginning of his journey, in fact, he said that he made an offer and nobody signed up. And so he shares these stories to let us know that, look, on our journey of becoming entrepreneurs and being entrepreneurs that are going to create seven figures and eight figures, it's okay to try and fail. Okay, so he shares his personal examples with you, and so that makes him very relatable. So he shares his successes, and then, for example, one success, he was able to do a challenge of doing a presentation. He only had 15 minutes to come up with a live webinar. 15 minutes he used to prepare, and in that webinar, he sold over $250,000 dollars worth of products, and he won a challenge of 50,000. I mean, he shares stories like that that makes you to know that this is somebody who is not just writing from theory, but he is writing from practice. So the strengths of the book are so many. And I would say another strength is that the book is not just a book that you read and you put down, it's a guidebook. Okay, it's a guidebook. For example, towards the end, he talks a lot about the perfect webinar. Okay, so section 3 is about how to 10x, is the 10x secrets one to many selling. And Russell basically gives us the framework for the perfect webinar. And I mean, this is something that when I read it, I was like, wow, this is amazing stuff. So, my homework starting from tonight is to put together my perfect webinar. And so this is not something that I'm just going to say, oh, I've read that book, take no. In fact, Myron Golden always says, you've not learned anything until you've mastered it. Okay. So it's not just about reading the books for the sake of it. Whatever books you read, whatever books I read, we have to make sure we implement it. Only once you've implemented and you've mastered it, do you actually know it. So for me, this book is not just a book, it's not a novel, it's a practical tool, it's a tool book that you use. For example, yesterday, Russell, I learned about his hook, story, and offer. Okay, so he talks about how whenever people have built their funnels and it's not working, he says it's due to one of three things: either your hook is not right, okay, and your hook is how you grab your audience attention, either it's not right, or your story doesn't come with enough emotions, so your story doesn't touch people at the right place, or your offer, just there's something wrong with it. So when I learned about that concept, I mean, it's a concept that I'm going to remember. You can't forget it. Okay. Hook, story, offer. So he gives so many frameworks, and he doesn't just share the framework, he shares story after story to cement the framework. So the strengths of the book, I mean, I could go on and I could go on, but I won't. In terms of the weaknesses, goodness, I find it hard to share any weakness about this book just because I can tell the level of detail that Russell has put into this book. And not just the detail, but he is very practical. So if I had to share or say one weakness, maybe perhaps some of perhaps it doesn't have to be as long as it is, but that's just because I know some people don't like it when a book is really really this long, but for me it was perfect. But for some people they might be put off because of the length and the thickness of the book. So that's a possible weakness, but for me it didn't really matter. So, in terms of the summary then of the book, I'll be sharing the summary with you from day one when I started my podcast. So, if you've missed some of the summary, please go back to day one of this podcast on becoming a millionaire. A Christian millionaire. So, this book is all about becoming the expert. And so, in terms of becoming the expert, Russell shows us how we can find our voice. Then he teaches us how we can develop our own framework. And then he talks about the three core markets or desires that people want. So whenever you're developing a product or a service, he wants you to know that you're either solving one of three problems. Okay. One of them is that your clients desire wealth. Another is that they desire health. And another is that they want to improve their relationships. So always frame your offer around those three desires. So that's the first part, becoming the expert. Then the second part, he talks about the new opportunity, the fact that you and I must have an offer. And the offer must be enticing and it must be new. It shouldn't just be an improvement on what is already there. It should be a new offer, and your offer should be so exciting that your clients will be willing to sign up with you. Okay, and it then shows us how you can get more money for the same framework by teaching it in a different way. Then the next section talks about the future based course, the movement. So you need to take your clients on a journey. So Russell gives tips on how you can do that. Then he talks about the fact that we must create belief in our clients, create the belief that whatever result they're looking for is possible. So he shares how we can do that. Then the next section talks about how we can, talks about the 10x secrets. And he shares many examples of how he develops one way of doing things or one way of presenting that he does it to many people and makes millions. In fact, he shares a story of how Grant Cardone had asked him to speak at one of his events, 10x events, and Grant asked Russell Brunson how much he would charge, and Russell said, "Look, if I'm going to leave my home and leave my family for the weekend, the minimum I'll leave for is £1 million." And Grant Cardone said, "No way, I'm not going to pay you £1 million." So Russell gave him a suggestion. He said, "Look, how about I create an offer, I sell it, and whatever offer, however much I make, we split it halfway." Okay, so Grant Cardone agreed. And Russell sat with his team. They devised the perfect webinar. Okay, they came up with it. And on stage, Russell, I think, spoke just for about 60 minutes or 90 minutes. And In that time, he was able, by selling to many people in the audience, I think it was an audience of about £9,000, he was able to make £3.2 million, making him the highest paid public speaker. Literally speaking for an hour, he made 3.2 million. So this section was really my favorite, about how Russell shares so many secrets of how we can sell to many and make a lot of money. Then the final section is about becoming your dream customer's guide. And so, based on the perfect webinar example and template that Russell shares, he gives us a challenge. Okay. He tells us that if you and I want to become experts in our field, we should create a webinar and then deliver it live once a week for the next 12 months. Create your perfect webinar and deliver it. He did it himself, and he said that's how he got so good at doing webinars. That's how when Grant Cardone asked him to speak at his event, for him, he knew that even though Grant Cardone wasn't willing to pay him 1 million, he knew he would make that money and more. And in the end, of course, he took away more than 1 million because he made 3.2 million. Okay. But he says the reason he was able to do that is because he spent years doing live webinars once a week. Live webinars once a week. And so that's what I'm going to leave with you. For me, I'm an action taker. When I read something or learn something, I don't like to stew over it and wait till, someday out, as Brian Tracy says. I like to get on it straight away. So that is what I am going to do. So I'm going to give you the challenge. If you too want to be an expert in your field, why don't you join with me on this journey? Develop a perfect webinar. If you don't know how, get your copy of this book. I'll put the link in the chat. And then he tells us in the book the process for actually developing the webinar. He tells us how to advertise it, how much money to use for advertising, and how every time we do the webinar, he says we'll get better and better and better until it's become so predictable. Anytime he speaks, he knows what the conversion numbers are going to be because he's done it numerous amounts of times. So that is the one takeaway that I've taken from this book and that I want to give you. Okay. In fact, when I first started, the first takeaway was what he said, that if you will spend one day every single, spend some time once a day for the next year, posting on social media every day. Choose one social media platform and post every day for a year. He says your bank account can never be dry. So I decided to be posting on YouTube every day. And if you've been following me, today is day 11, and I pray to God He gives me the grace to do it for a year. So that's one thing I would say I am take away from this book. And the second thing I want you to take away from this book is the webinar. Spend time to develop the perfect webinar and host it once a week for the next 12 months and see if your bank account and if my bank account will not change. So I really enjoyed reading this book and sharing the secrets with you. Tomorrow, God willing, I'll move on to the next book that I'm reading. And in fact, I'm actually doing a really exciting challenge that I started today, but I will tell you all about it tomorrow. So stay tuned and learn more about it. Take care and God bless. Bye bye.